2600 BC by Egyptian architect Imhotep. He was the first physician, engineer, and architect.
The pyramids are old. In fact, you've probably heard the fact that the last pharaoh, Cleopatra, was closer to the iPhone than the construction of the pyramids. But the pyramids are so old that even centuries after their construction, a population of woolly mammoth still existed on Wrangel Island off Siberia.
Did you know that Augustus Caesar was the wealthiest man to ever live? He had a net worth of $4.6 trillion, which is equivalent to 3.46 trillion Great British pounds.
The famous video game company Nintendo was founded in 1889 in Kyoto, Japan, producing handmade playing cards. In that same year, the notorious and mysterious serial killer Jack the Ripper was still making headlines in London.
Julius Caesar, the uncle of Augustus Caesar, was stabbed 23 times when he was assassinated.
In 1969, a circus elephant named Mary was hanged after she killed her handler, Walter Eldridge. Public outcry over the incident led to the decision to execute Mary.
Adolf Hitler's nephew, William Patrick Hitler, was drafted into the US Navy to fight against the Nazis in World War II.
Dogs and cats are seen as the most popular pets today. However, during the age of the Roman Empire, the most popular pets were dogs, ferrets, and monkeys. Instead of cats, ancient Romans used ferrets to kill pests, while monkeys were kept as entertainment.
Ancient Egyptians used curved stone slabs as pillows. They did this because the head was considered the seat of spiritual life and must be protected at all costs.
Up until the 1970s, there were people known as knocker-uppers, who would go around and knock on people's windows or doors to wake them up in time for work.
In the Victorian era, drunkenness was a big issue in people of all ages. This was due to not being able to source safe drinking water. It was much cheaper to have a pint of beer, as it was only 1 pence.
Canada and Denmark have been playfully fighting over the control of a tiny rocky island between Greenland and Canada. Every so often, when one country or the other visit, they place a bottle of their country's liquor on the island as a strategic move.
Clocks around the UK used to be set to different times. In 1884, everyone set the clocks to the time of Greenwich, London, as this was to stop confusion with train times. This time zone is still used today throughout the UK and is known as Greenwich Mean Time.
1,200 bones from around 10 humans were discovered in the basement of the founding father Benjamin Franklin's house. These were not murder victims. They were used innocently for studying human anatomy.
The first vending machine was created by a hero of Alexandria. When you put a coin into the vending machine, it dispensed holy water.
During World War II, there were only 6 casualties of the US mainland caused by enemy action. In May 1945, a Japanese balloon bomb fell on a mother and her 5 children, killing them when it exploded.
In 1913, Hitler, Stalin, Trotsky, and
years later, a large, supposedly unsinkable ship named Titanic sank after it struck an iceberg in the northern Atlantic. Titanic didn't have enough lifeboats for the thousands of passengers on board. Coincidence?
In the early 1900s, a common public hazard was to slip on a banana peel. Very random.
In 1881, a man named James White purchased a baboon named Jack. James was a railway signalman for the Cape Town Port Elizabeth railway service. However, James lost both his legs below the knee after an accident, so when he purchased Jack the baboon, James trained him to push his wheelchair and even operate the railway signals under his supervision.
In the Victorian times, the felt used to make hats were often treated with mercury. This led to a lot of people who wore them getting mercury poisoning.
It is believed that roughly 97% of human history has gone unrecorded. Written accounts only date back as far as 6,000 years. However, modern humans have been around for 200,000 years.
The most successful pirate was a female Chinese pirate called Xing Shi. She led a fleet of hundreds of ships and was the most feared pirate in history.
During the late 20th century, the Soviet Union attempted to erase the memory of the ruthless Mongolian conqueror Genghis Khan. Simply mentioning his name was seen as a crime against the USSR.
In World War II, a Great Dane called Juliana was awarded the Blue Cross Medal. This was because she extinguished a bomb by peeing on it.
The oldest known artwork dates back to roughly 100,000 years ago in a cave in France.
Cleopatra isn't actually an Egyptian. Historians believe she is Greek and is a descendant of Alexander the Great's Macedonian general Ptolemy. I think that's how it's pronounced.
The year 46 BC was 445 days long and was the longest year in human history. Nicknamed the Year of Confusion, Julius Caesar inserted 2 extra leap months in order to make the seasonal year match up with the new Julian calendar.
Former President George Washington opened a distillery after his term in the White House finished. It was the biggest distillery in the country, and by 1799 he was producing over 11,000 gallons of whiskey.
In 1929, the Indiana Bell Building in Evansville, Indiana, the headquarters for the Indiana Bell Telephone Company, was seen as inadequate and was to be demolished to make way for a new building. However, this would have caused disruptions to the telephone service, so the decision was made to lift the entire 11,000-ton 8-story building and rotate it 90 degrees to make room for an expansion. Whilst being rotated 15 inches per month, electricity, sewage, water and heating were constantly maintained for the building, meaning that these 600 employees could continue their work without disruption to facilities or services during the move.
The ancient Romans
was established in 930 AD and still remains the acting Parliament of Iceland to this day.
In the Victorian times, there was a job that was called poo collectors. Yes, it was a real thing. They gathered human waste from roads and pavements and discarded of it safely.
More than 5,000 tons of bombs were dropped by both the Allied and Axis powers during the D-Day landings of World War II. Because of this, scientists who studied the sand on the beaches of Normandy discovered that 4% of the beaches are made up of microscopic bits of smoothed down shrapnel from the landings.
Alexander Fleming made the accidental discovery of penicillin after he forgot to clean his petri dish when he went on holiday in 1928.
An ancient handwritten text named the Voynich manuscript was carbon dated to around 1404 to 1438 AD. The text was written in an unknown language, and despite being studied by hundreds of cryptographers and master code breakers, nobody can decipher the manuscript's origin or meaning.
The Colosseum was named that because it was built next to a statue called Colossus.
The Colosseum originally had marble on the outside. The Goths looted the marble and left the stone after the fall of Rome.
The pyramids were actually a popular tourist site for ancient Egyptians, as they were built 2,000 years before King Tut's reign.
Albert Einstein turned down an offer to be president of Israel in 1952. He was offered this as he was Jewish.
The owners of Titanic actually never claimed it was unsinkable, despite what James Cameron